All right, and we're live. So, welcome back to everybody. And for anybody new, thank you for stopping by. My name is Vina, Miss WOC Reader, and today I have two amazing guests that I am here to have a conversation with, and I can't wait to introduce you guys. They have a graphic novel coming out in January called Ghost Roast, which I recently was lucky to be able to read early thanks to them. And it's really one that you guys are going to enjoy. So I would like to introduce you to Shawnelle and Shawnee Gibbs.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, everybody. And thank you, Vina, for having us. We're so excited to be here with you today.
Thank you so much for coming out. So first, I wanted you guys to just give a little bit of an introduction to yourselves. Like I know some of my followers don't exactly know what you've done, but you have done a lot in the industry. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like some of the things you've worked on in the past?
Yeah. We're Shanae and Chanel, also known as the Gibbs Sisters. We write in across comics, animation, television, and film. And yes, we're really excited to be here to talk about Ghost Roast, which is our first debut graphic novel, which comes out on HarperCollins Versify in January 2nd, actually, in 2024. So we're really excited about that. Shanae, do you want to explain our background and what we've been up to over the years?
Yeah. So we are originally from the Bay Area. We're from Oakland, California. And we grew up with our mom, who was an artist herself. So she taught us, um, just taught us how to draw. She was also a preschool teacher when we were younger and just gave us a love for the arts and reading. And that just stuck with us throughout our entire career. I think when we were kids, we were sort of doing comics and early forms of animation before we even knew what they were, what it was, and that there were career fields for it. But we studied cinema in the Bay Area and ended up moving down to Los Angeles. And we have been working on in television production and animation, and we've worked on shows like Warner Brothers Animation's Little Ellen. We worked on the Barbie It Takes Two series for Netflix and the Barbie Mermaid Power movie. And recently we were writers on the Craig of the Creek spinoff for Cartoon Network called Jessica's Big Little World. So we've just been having a really good time as a writing partnership, telling stories for animation and comics and graphic novels.
And I must say that we did not do illustration for this beautiful book. The illustration was done by Emily Cannon, who's so talented artist out of Florida, and the colors were done by Ashwarya Tandon. And just, it's just a great team that we got to work with. And I wanted to say that. So all that deliciousness that you see visually was due to our team.
Thank you. And thank you for that introduction. So, why did you guys decide that you wanted to work together as a team?
Oh my goodness. Well, we're sisters. We're also twin sisters, so we've shared a lot over the years, including a womb space. So we've learned how to work together. And just growing up with our mom, who taught us how to draw, and like Shanae was saying, helped us to develop a love for storytelling. And coming from a family of like really strong oral storytellers like our grandmother and aunts and uncles. I think it just kind of was in our blood to tell stories. And then as we developed our language skills and we'd be trying to like one up each other with our illustrations and storytelling, it just was something that was really natural. Even when I was younger, writing came easy to me, Shanae. I mean, I don't, I mean, I'm sure it was pretty similar, but I just realized that sometimes even it was easier for me to write something than it was to say it. or I just was so much more clear, and I could convey things, really powerfully. I learned, very early on in elementary school. And so it just became like a secret weapon. Like anytime there was a paper that needed to be written, or, I would notice that other, kids were struggling with certain things, or, it was just really hard for people. It'd take them the whole 2 weeks to write the story or whatever. And then I'll just like up and like put it together, So I think it was just a language and something that came very easily. And then we realized that when we combined forces, it was pretty powerful. Like adults would be like, oh, the Gibbs sisters wrote this, or, we'd like to present this, or, something like that. It connected with people. So I realized when it was something that adults, like our aunts and family members would come to us to like write things out, for them. It was really something that was effective, and a tool that I could use, as well as something that brought me great joy to do on the side. And then so coming together, sorry, I just went all the way around. But yeah, Shawnee, I don't know if you had anything to add.
No, it's true. I think, yeah, even whenever we combine forces, I think it really resonated with people. Even, it goes back to us doing like combining art and words together for Black History Month posters and things in elementary school. And then I guess it occurred to me that some of our early bylines were in a journalism class. So the school newspaper, it would be like, oh, by Shawnelle Gibbs. And
oh yeah, we eventually became editors at the Oakland Technical High School Scribe.
So yeah, there was just a real benefit to having a partner to help create things and to help bring my vision, your vision into the world. So yeah, we found early that it was really beneficial to work as a team.
That's amazing. And I love what you said about using words to really convey what you want to say. Because I find for me too, sometimes it's just easier to put things in writing and have it be clear and concise and exactly what I want to say.
Because otherwise I'd be like, what did she just, we need a translator.
Yeah, that's how I am. Like even sometimes, like if I'll do a sit down video, I'll write it out first so I can figure out this is exactly what I'm going to say. How is it going to sound?
Yeah, I think it was just sort of a superpower that it was just like, this is a way that I can express myself. Especially when I was younger, I felt like I was a kid who worked really hard to do well in school and sit up straight and do all of the things, and I was a little more reserved and probably a shyer kid too. So it was like, I could really, if you asked me a question or something, I would have probably given you an answer, but I would have given you a better answer if I wrote it. And so, I think it was just a way that we could really express ourselves. And it was really great to discover that early,
So how did you guys get started working in animation?
Oh, wow. So it goes back to probably even before we went to film school. We were always doodling, and around the time there were tools that had come on the market, like Flash animation and Adobe After Effects, and we were just fooling around, really, like self-taught sort of things. We always loved to draw, and then we were teaching ourselves and Illustrator, Photoshop, all those sorts of tools, and using like Wacom tablets and all this sort of stuff. And so we started doing our own short animations. At the time, we were I don't know how far we want to go. I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but we were just working with different local station, TV stations and things like that. African Eye, I'll just say this.
Yeah, and
in the
listen,
Bay Area.
Shawnelle, I got to shout out our friend John in college, because we would have never been able to afford any of this software. But our friend John, had access to software that he would share with us. And it was like, when he shared it and we saw what he was doing, we were just sort of like, wow, like these are tools we can play with. And we taught ourselves a lot of that stuff. And as Shawnelle was saying, sorry, Shawnelle, but working with that programs, local programs like African Eye, and honing our storytelling skills. And African Eye was like this local cable access show. This is the other thing. We were kids in college.
One of our mentors, art friend.
Yeah, art friend.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, at San Francisco State, he would just buy airtime on this local cable access show. And he was just like, come on, kids. He was like a film and television instructor in San Francisco, retired, but he just wanted to get, young people telling stories, learning how to use this stuff. And he would just come put a show together over here. Here's the cameras, here are the tripods, here are whatever you need. Like, I want you all to like tell stories. And so he gave us a real playground to create stuff. And Shawnelle and I were creating early animations. We created like our own little version of the Powerpuff Girls called the Afro Puff Girls. And it was like a say no to drugs campaign. But so this is stuff that people throughout Oakland, if you had local cable, like you could see the work, and people would see it and be like, oh my God, I saw Afro Puff Girls, or I saw this and that. And so that was a real a place for us to develop our skills and to get confidence in our voices, and make mistakes, all of that stuff. But it was a wonderful start, and really set us up for what would come next, because we had already, by the time we later came to LA out of San Francisco State, we had already had editing skills and things that when we got into TV, people were like, oh, wow, you're good. Like they thought you were like some kind of savant.
Kid,
yeah. And it's like, well, no, I've been working at it, so just want to shout out everybody, Kevin and John, and the Professor Franz for like really pouring into us early.
Yeah. And the other thing was, the cool thing too was simultaneously we were teaching youth media in the Bay Area through organizations like Youth Sounds and ZM Arts and Technology Museum up in San Francisco and Oakland and throughout the Bay Area. So we were also able to teach it to younger people. So that was cool too. So while we were learning, we were also passing on the knowledge that we were getting, which was great.
Yeah, and that set us up to do some of our own independent animations. We did a web series called Adopted by Aliens, which was informed by some of our experiences working with young people, but it was a sci-fi adventure featuring a young Black girl who's like, taken in by a family of extraterrestrials. And we did a lot of just a lot of independent animation stuff that really helped us, I think, define our voice and what kind of stories we like to tell, which is a lot of times women of color of varying ages, just stories with adventure and heart and a lot of comedy. And so, yeah, that had been great for us.
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna keep going. Vina's gonna be like, stop. But that gave us, a visual language between ourselves that we worked with, small teams when we were. It started expanding and expanding. We worked on a project called Sule in the Case of the Tiny Sparks with a group of artists written by our friend Renee Rawls. That's now a book. And then also working with artists helped us to just also move into other realms of storytelling. And we had a web comic called Fashion Forward, which was a sci-fi adventure as well that we described as like The Devil Wears Prada meets Back to the Future. So it was really fun. And we would do a weekly update, and it gave us also tools for storytelling through web comics that helped to keep, readers' interest as they waited. And sometimes, we had whole jobs and lives that we were trying to live. Sometimes they had to wait a little longer, as you develop the story and kept on schedule and all that sort of thing. But just speaking through words and visuals has been a big part of how we communicate. And it's cool that we're able to make a career out of it and to be able to cross so many disciplines.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned not only like the people who helped you get into the industry, but you mentioned helping other people, because that's so important, because a lot of times people will get through the door, but then they'll close the door behind them. But I just thought that was really cool that as you were learning to do this stuff, you were using the tools that your friend helped you access, you were also helping teach younger people so that they would be able to do it going forward.
Yeah, it's incredibly important, to pass the torch. I think, well, for us, I'm going to get into my Octavia Butler, worship, but when we saw, I think in high school we discovered Octavia Butler's Kindred, and seeing her and the kind of stories that she was telling, for one, it was like nothing we'd ever seen before. It's like, who is this woman? Where is she? I know she defines herself as a hermit. Like, how can I find her? But yeah, seeing her and her trajectory, which was very unconventional. She was doing work that nobody was doing at the time. And she became a beacon of light for us. It was just like, wow, this is an author who exists in the world. And I want to do that too. And so I feel like Octavia Butler left breadcrumbs for a lot of us now. A lot of people grew up, and she was our, Shawnelle says, mother. I mean, like literary mother, like in our literary ancestors, and so it's just incredibly powerful. I'm just so grateful that she existed and persevered when publishing was not easy. Like when you read her biography and all the things that she went through, just to tell her stories, you're just like, wow. If she can do that, we can do that, and we can do more. So working with youth, inspiring youth, and helping to not only open doors, but like keep the doors open, because one thing that you see cyclically happening is like the doors are open and they'll close, and it's like, okay, how can we keep this door open? Let's open a window, let's open a back door. Let's just, let people know that there are spaces here, yeah, as best we can, we really think it's important for young people to see people like us and others, going for their dreams.
Yeah, and some of the work we've been doing in the last few years is with an organization called Cinnamon Girl in the Bay Area, and they produce an anthology each year of short stories of young women from like 12 to about 18. And so we've really had, it's been an honor for us to serve as writing coaches for the program for the past 3 years, and really help shepherd and just encourage. Really, that's really our goal as coaches, is just to encourage young folks to get their first story, their first byline. It takes a lot of work and effort and revisions and all this sort of stuff, but just coaching them through the process of like what it takes, and then the editorial process and all that, to tell your first story. Because once you do it the first time, it gives you the strength and the confidence to know that you can do it again and again and again. And one of our girls started as a sophomore, and now she's going to be graduating, but she has a whole 3-series short that they were just at the Bay Area Book Festival, just like digging into like her first 2 stories. And it's just cool to see young people come from just being like, can I do this, to like, yes, I can do this. And now they're mentoring others and, encouraging others. So it's once you start it, it's a little fire that can't be stopped. So.
I love that, especially because often we don't see like a lot of Black authors in the media, so you don't know like this is what I can aspire to be. So I like that you really do work with them to help them and just encourage them to create their own.
It's so important.
Yeah.
And speaking of creating your own, like I understand you guys have done a few indie projects and that you were able to successfully Kickstarter your own comic series, The Invention of E.J. Whitaker. So what was that experience like, and were comics something that you were always interested in?
We didn't grow up with like traditional comics, like the superhero comics. Our mom was a big fan of the Wee Pals, and we came up through Sunday comics and things like that. So Wee Pals was created by Maury Turner, who is from Oakland and is like a big inspiration for us as well. So over the years, we just, as we were developing our language and seeing different comics and web comics, it really gave us the courage to, venture into it. Because sometimes I feel like for folks who didn't come through, Marvel and DC early on, it was almost like the doors were closed for you, but, through web comics and things like that, that's how we, started getting our foot in the door and experimenting. And the invention of E.J. Whitaker came as Shawnee is like our history. She's like our history department. We both love history, but she is, she'll deep dive into things, and so many ideas were swirling at the time. But the story of the invention of E.J. Whitaker about a young woman at the turn of the 20th century who is an inventor but has to invent under a male pseudonym because times were tough for ladies, and at being an African American woman in Tuskegee, Alabama. So we got to explore all of this delicious historical fiction, and Shawnee went wild in the research, and then so we got to work with a really great team to help with our visual development. And we'd already been doing the webcomic work, but it helped us to more serialize our story and things like that. And so we worked with our team, Mark Hernandez. We worked with Hassani McIntosh, who passed away, rest in peace, a few years ago. Our team has just been developing. Earl Womack, who works on our short stories. And just people we've been working with over the years, artists we've admired, artists we've collaborated with or met at different cons and things. So one thing that when it comes time to talk about any suggestions we have for people is just like find your team. If you're a writer, always be on the lookout for artists. And a lot of the artists that we work with, we weren't even looking for at the time, like Earl Womack. And we've been doing amazing things together for many years. But so the invention of E.J. Whitaker, when we wanted to develop it into a series, we thought about it and we were like, should we self-fund it or what should we do? And it always was, we grew up as Black women, very self-sufficient. We came out of 90s girl power, all this kind of stuff. And, so it's hard to like think about asking for, first of all, help, which, you learn how to do over the years. But second of all, like money to like strangers, the Kickstarter, we've already been studying, campaigns and things like that. And so we decided to take the leap and put our little hat out and ask for money, which we thought maybe our mom and like a couple of people might, help us. And then it just, it took fire a little bit, and we were able to overfund the project, and really it helped to put us on the map in the Black comics world, and introduce our stories to people who we were. And since then, it's opened up a lot of doors and opportunities for us. And it just started with like, first of all, doing the work, and then asking for help, and then seeing where it went. And that was it helped us, get our confidence together for things like that, So it was a pitch, and it was a little bit of a risk, but it paid off pretty well.
And I have to say, it was the hardest thing to ask for help. That was the thing. It was like to be vulnerable, and say, hey, like as Shawnelle said, the hat, but it's like taking the hat off and, putting and passing it around, it's just like, oh my God, like this is, what will this feel like? And what the fear was like, what if nobody gave? Like, what if we didn't make our goal, and that would, that might cause us to, I don't know what we thought, but just a message to anybody out there who's just like, okay, taking the risk to ask for help, no matter what might happen. You never know what kind of door might be open just by you taking that leap. And so we learned to leap with that Kickstarter, and I'm so glad we did. But it took us a minute to get there, But yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and prepared us for everything, everything that came after.
That's amazing. And also earlier this year, you were featured in Women of Marvel #1. So what was it like working on IP for a popular franchise? I imagine it's a lot different than your own original products where you have more creative control.
Yeah. A Marvel editor reached out to us and asked if we were interested in doing a take. We did a pitch. And we were able to get a Photon and Miss Marvel story. And it was pretty incredible. And I mean, as you do this work, particularly in comics and animation, and especially if you are a writer and not an artist, or even if you are, it just takes a lot of preparation to make a lot happen. So when we work independently to do this work, we have to write the script. I mean, and then we have to do like the visual development, figure out who we're going to collaborate with artistically, what sort of style we're going for. We do a lot of reference work, and Shawnee just goes crazy pulling like, all this reference and going into like, the depths of history to pull things. And so we do a lot of like pre-work before we can even get to just like conceptual art. And then from there, we've already plotted out the pages and things like that. But then there's a schedule that you're trying to, keep up with, especially if you like some of our comics are like 20 some odd pages. And so we did a 10-pager for the Women of Marvel project, and just the machine that Marvel was so incredible to just see it work. It just made it so much easier for us to do our thing. You know what I mean? As opposed to all of the lifting and everything. It was just like blip, 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 and it was over. And it helped us to use a little bit of the Marvel method in how we did our scripting and things like that. And I think it improved us as writers, and also just showed us how smooth and seamless the process can be when you're working for a major like that.
Yeah, and they, with the Marvel editors, I just got to say hats off to them, because they are they're like a library of knowledge, from the editors to the assistant editors. They know they can go back to book, 161, whatever, 1992. They know everything, and they're there as a resource for you. And it's just such a supportive way to work, and it was a wonderful experience, and we really enjoyed it. So that was really cool. And then just working with a team of women all women team, from the editors, writers, everybody involved. It was just amazing, and that was to celebrate Women's History Month in March of this year. So, oh yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, and illustrators.
That's amazing. So was it like a faster process than what you are normally used to?
It was so fast. It was so fast, and just like once we turned in the script, it was like we didn't have to do, as independents, like it's like you're kind of like helping with the scheduling and all that sort of stuff. We didn't have to do anything. It just came back like, hey, are there any, of course you're going to do some edits once art gets involved and all that kind of stuff, but it was so quick.
It allows you to just be a writer. And that was fantastic. Like we didn't have to put on any other hats. We didn't have to, be editor, be scheduler, or anything like that. I was just like, okay, we're just writing, and it was different and wonderful.
All right, so let's get into Ghosters. Like I was telling you guys earlier, I really enjoyed this story, and it wasn't just like the overall story and like the ghosts and stuff. There were just little fine details that you put in that I really appreciated, that I am excited to talk more about. So what would you say Ghost Rose is about?
Ghost Rose is a paranormal adventure that takes place in New Orleans, and it follows our protagonist, Chelsea, as she spends the summer with her father, who is a ghost hunter. And so Chelsea learns some secrets about herself. She learns some things about herself that puts her at odds with her dad, and how they're able to overcome that over the course of this summer is pretty much what the story is about. We just are just so in love with this story, so in love with this world, so in love with the characters. And we're just really glad to hear that it's connecting and it's coming through and that people are excited about it. And just to talk about it and for it finally to be, ready to be birthed in January, which is like, it's crazy that is it less than 2 months? Well, I can't even keep count, but
I think so. Yeah. And we just found out this past week that we got a starred children's review from Publishers Weekly and a really great Kirkus review. So it just feels good to be releasing this story into the world. We're excited to talk about
it. So where did the idea come from for this story?
So we grew up. Our maternal grandmother is from the South. So her people they're out of Texas by way of Louisiana. And so we grew up always hearing ghost stories from everybody. And our grandmother would do things that were like unconventional. She had these what are they like? Superstitious things that we knew she was from Texas when we were little, and then it all kind of made sense when it was like our grandmother's people were from Louisiana, but she would like if you swept her foot, she would like spit on the broom, and there were just all these things that little things that she would do. So there was always something there around ghosts and things that were might be considered superstitious and in the paranormal realm. Yeah, supernatural. So that was kind of always with us. And I myself, early on in my career, worked in paranormal television. And so one of my early jobs was like watching footage of, people doing ghost investigations. And so I just became fascinated with the technology, the passion that people had behind it, even though like out from the outside world, people would be like, these people are doing kooky things over here, or, whatever. So these people are chasing something that is, I don't understand. But I was just like, these people are passionate. they've got their instruments, their tools. There's, just this whole, world going on here. So I really just became interested in paranormal investigation, that somebody was out there trying to measure this stuff. And so that, I think, was the catalyst. That was the kind of catalyst behind Ghost Rose. Shawnelle, am I missing anything?
No, and then we just started developing this world that took place in New Orleans, which is one of our favorite cities in the country, and we have our own, our own roots there. So as the story was unveiling itself, there was stuff about our history that was coming out in New Orleans, our family history, and so it just became this really special place to set Ghost Roast. And so as Chelsea had even come into being, into focus, and just the relationship and, the areas of the city and all that sort of infusing, all of that into the story was something that we just started developing and keeping in our little story folder. We have a story document, of all these stories, and Ghost Roast just kept coming back. And, we never it would always be something that we were just jamming on, or something would pop up, and then we just keep going. And then eventually an editor reached out about any ideas that we had. And Ghost Roast was pretty much fully developed at that point. And so that's how it actually came to be in the form of the book. But it was always existing for a few years, actually, before it got picked up and put into book form.
And I noticed there were little things that they weren't talked about a whole lot, but they definitely were brought to attention that I really appreciated. Like, you have Chelsea going to a private school, and I see private schools featured in a lot of stories. And I was actually talking to a group recently, that I said these schools tend to all feel alike, and they feel like the kind of private schools you would see on TV. So what I liked about this was that it felt like a real private school. I remember early on, you had Chelsea hanging with her friends, and they're all rich, but she's one of the few Black people, but she's not the only one. And there was a Black boy character who she sees one of her white girlfriends is dating, and there's a little bit of jealousy there. And I thought that was just very realistic, Chipon, because that's somebody who went to private school, that's some of the stuff we noticed too. So why did you guys decide to include that?
Well, I would say Chelsea is sort of loosely based on our own experience, particularly in middle school, where we didn't go to a private school, but there was
our next door cousin went to a private school.
Oh yeah, our cousin grew up going to private schools, but so we went to we were
out of district.
Yeah, we ended up going to a middle school that was out of district because the school that we were supposed to go to, our mom was really concerned. It was known for being a tough school. Could I say the name? There was a school called, well, Shawnelle doesn't want me to say. There was a school in Oakland. Everybody from Oakland will probably know, but
North
Oakland, where the middle school was really tough. And we had a cousin who went, and she would always be having to fight girls and stuff like that. And our mom was like, "Oh no, I can't have this." We were in 6th grade. She was like, "What can we do?" There was something called the Gifted and Talented program. I don't know if this was throughout the United States, but GATE, yeah. And so we were a part of that program, and because of that, we were able to go to a middle school that was outside of our district. And so this was a school where, kids of wealthier kids went there. And so there was a real distinct class division where there were us, when we kids were kind of bussing in, it wasn't busing, but we were catching the bus to go to this area where, richer kids lived. And then having those, being faced with, being in these two worlds, at the same time. And then just like, um, seeing what it meant to be wealthy, feeling that feeling of not like kids were pulling up to school in Mercedes, and being able to do things, have like technological advances, using all sorts of things, fancy equipment for like, I remember there was a English presentation where a kid had a whole video. This was back in the day when nobody had anything technologically really savvy, but put on this really cool presentation, and all I had was like my little handwritten, you know what I mean, like thing. So it was just like being the kid who was faced with that, and then having to shine, and like your parents sort of being like, oh, I want, be great, and you're like, well, shoot, there's some challenges here that you're not aware of. So we really wanted to infuse that into a character, because I don't feel like I see that often too. Sometimes it is very like television world, like, oh, these are rich kids, this is so we kind of sprinkled a little bit of our own experience growing up and what that felt like into Chelsea when we were developing the character.
And yeah, there's some experiences that have even come from being adults in different environments as well, and having some of those similar experiences that carry through. So yeah, there's a lot of us in there.
Yeah, Vita, we're so glad that resonated with you, that you were able to, that stood out.
Yeah. And another thing that stood out was just the relationship between Chelsea and her father, because we don't see a lot of stories, especially for like this young adult age range, where it kind of focuses on the parents a little bit. So it was nice to see that, like, how she was kind of embarrassed by her father and she was struggling with her relationship with him. So why did you guys think like that was important to showcase here as well?
I think sometimes in books and film, the relationships of the parents, the parent-child, kind of don't necessarily ring true to like how we grew up and people that we know. There's and then just standing by and almost channeling as some of this is happening. There's a level of conversation that we wanted Chelsea and her parents to have, even though they were disagreeing about different things, there was, disagreement, but also a level of respect that they had for each other. And I think that it's something that we experience in our life, and also, with our friends, and seeing our friends with kids and all that sort of stuff, like just a little more authenticity behind that. Like, it's not just like, oh, your parents are dumb, or, you know what I mean? Or like somebody is wrong, or, sometimes you are, but there's nuances to these conversations and these experiences. And standing back and like reading the story, it really makes me feel proud about how we were able to balance all of that.
Yeah, I love that, like how you always had her parents involved throughout, because you're right. So often we do pick up these stories and they don't feel like the experience like we or maybe like our family members have gone through. Like a lot of times in Black families, like your parents are on you. Like we're not running around doing whatever unsupervised. Whereas I had like, because I did go to private school with like a lot of people, like a lot of their parents would be out of town on business and they'd be doing what they want, or like they just be not paying attention to them, and they had their own cars so they could be off doing whatever, and we did not have our own cars to be running around all over town. So I liked seeing that in a book because it felt very realistic to the experience so many can have. And I like that you didn't just go with like deciding to make her just like another rich Black girl in the story. Like you gave her some nuance there.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that.
And so with the ghost aspect of the story, like where did you like pull inspiration from that? Was that like, was there any stories like you researched that kind of made its way in here?
Well, we wanted to explore, in this environment, these secrets, that are just beneath the surface. And even within our own family history, that's a whole other podcast. But just beneath, on the opposite side of the wall, or those are the sorts of stories that we wanted to explore. And we just thought, this was just a very delicious space to do that. And we've had our own experiences with the supernatural. So, these are things that have happened in our family, but I'll just give you one example of one example is a family one. There's all sorts of little tiny stories. That's a whole other thing. That'd be another 15 minutes. But like one story, we moved to Los Angeles from living elsewhere in Southern California. And we lived in this old building that is actually in a photograph by a very famous photographer.
Ansel Adams, who was an LA photographer. Yeah.
Ansel Adams. Okay, so the building, that doesn't have anything to do with that, but it does exist in this photograph. So the building was built in the 1920s. And when we moved in, it was just, it was a dream, thing. We were going to be like living single or whoever, like living in LA, all cute and in this old my style of building, and we got in there. And, it was strange things were happening in the building. And the lights would flicker, at certain times, or, you'd say something and, just weird stuff. And Shawnee and I, we weren't even, it was within our first month, maybe like the first 2 or 3 weeks. And Shawnee was out doing something one night, and I was at home reading.
I just remember Chanel being, well, anyway, I'll let you finish, but you were just like, we just moved in here, but shoot, we might have to break this lease. Get out of
here. We both had like come to the conclusion, but there was an experience where I was reading one night, and I just felt a presence in the and after everything had happened, I just knew that it was, it was a presence from somewhere else. Anyway, and then I had to like, and this is what later on I realized that this is something that you could do with in a spirit sort of situation. There may be some debate about what actually happened here. If somebody watches this video and says, "Oh no, that's something else," but I literally had to just stop and say, because the presence was palpable in the room with me, I had to say, "Hey, I don't want you. I need you to go." Sort of deal. I didn't even know where the strength came from to do this or whatever. But after that, like I was very, I was very strong.
I think Chanel said something like "go away" or something like that. It was real, like strong. I mean, this is what she said.
Yeah, it was very, I don't know where the ancestors or something came through. And I was like, "You have to go. We don't want you here, blah, blah, blah." And after that, like it cleared. And so, so that was just one experience that has happened over the years. But yeah, we've had several, and we did want to explore historical aspects in the story, as well as some of the supernatural elements that are in there.
And Ghost Rose, is this a one and done thing, or is it something that you're thinking of potentially like turning into a series? Because you definitely have like a lot of possibilities here.
We'll see what happens. A lot of people are saying that they want to see a series, so we will keep our fingers crossed. I mean, I love the world, and me myself, I would love to see it continue. The characters, the adventures, and all of the exploration. So fingers crossed, there will be more.
Yeah, there's so many stories we want to explore. I have one in particular, but that's for another occasion.
And we've talked about like how great you guys work together, but what are some of like the challenges that you guys do have working together as family?
There, being a creative person, and this is changing, but it used to be that, you know, if you worked at the bank or something, you could just close the door. And I've worked at the bank. I worked at Bank of America back in the day, or like worked at a supermarket, which we had all sorts of jobs, but like worked, you know, different places. You could close the door and go home and be done, you know. But with creativity and like, you know, how we work, this stuff is always on, you know, it's always on your mind. The characters are sitting with you, you know, you'll hear something and be like, oh, that'll be, you know, keeping your little notes and stuff. So I think for like friends and family, because you know, if you're at a out somewhere, you know, we're both always thinking about stories or like things like that. So I could see where that would be like, you know, a frustrating thing for people.
Yeah, I mean, or if it's like around Thanksgiving or some family vacation, and like if we have a deadline that we've got to work on, or it's just like, whereas one person is distracted or whatever, trying to like enjoy the vacation and like type at the same time as like two people having to do that. But yeah, outside of that, yeah, there's just so many benefits to having working with family, you know, and having a family business that that can be thriving. So yeah, we have some challenges, but the benefits have just really outweighed them.
Yeah, and
And
having a
also,
creative partner, even aside from us being siblings, which probably comes with its own, you know, little arm wrestles, you know what I mean? But like having a creative partner is just invaluable for me. Because sometimes sometimes I'll be like, oh, I just can't, you know? Or like there was one thing, you know, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm just over it, you know, in terms of like doing some extra little leg work. And Shanae, for some reason, will have the strength of like 10,000 men and she could like get something done. Or like, you know, she'll be like, oh, forget about it. And then I could take it on. So it always, it helps to just be in a creative partnership. It's really cool.
yeah, and just like if I do a first draft of a scene or a first draft of a script or manuscript that we've written, and then I do my pass, and Shawnelle takes that draft and she does her version of it. And when I read it, I'm like chuckling and laughing at all the little special things she puts in there. Like she's currently doing something with some frogs in a script that we're working on, and it just makes me chuckle. And it just it's cool to be able to pass something back and forth between a creative partner, and each time it comes back it's enhanced, you know, and you're just enjoying yourself. So that's really a great part of our working relationship.
And then the cool thing about working in graphic novels is that when it comes back from the illustrator, like you
Emily and oh my
come
god, and
on,
Ashwarya.
so beastly. Like, you know, there was at one point we had just done this little ugly doodle of like the floor plan for the mansion in Ghost Rose. And we were like, oh, we wanted there to be a sunroom or something. I can't remember what it was. Emily can't, I mean, there's nothing she can't do, first of all. So when she came back with like the scheme and everything, the sunroom, everything, the garden, the maze, the like anything and everything, Chelsea's hair, Chelsea's fits, like everything. I mean, it was just like it was like Christmas every day, you know? So like just to have that level of like amplification or just like escalation, you know, heightening is really cool with collaboration of all sorts.
Yeah, and when Emily's inks went to Ashwarya, and those garden scenes with the azaleas, and there's like a moonlight scene at a like a old sort of amusement park. I was just gasping, you know, looking at all of that. So it's just like passing things on to another creative person and then seeing it go to the next level is really a very special part of comics and graphic novels that it is just amazing. And yeah, we hope everybody enjoys it when they look at these pages, because I've just been like, oh my god, so good.
So, like, how specific do you guys get when you're mapping out a scene? I'm sure you have an idea in your head of what you want it to look like, but then you're not the ones illustrating this. You didn't illustrate this project, so you have to make sure your vision translates to the page.
Yeah, we try and I've seen some comic strips or graphic novel strips that are really like dense with like information sometimes. We try to give enough like information and context for the scenes to have it register, but also, and you know, in the scripts you can basically suggest the paneling, you know. So, but the artist has free reign to pretty much take that and interpret it into and it's like a trust thing, you know, especially when you're working with people who you know are just like really talented and can do, you know, all things. It's like easy to just like be like, oh, this will be fine when it comes out. I mean, there may be some things like some characters are specifically something that may not have been articulated in the original pass or something. You just make a suggestion once or twice, but yeah, that's the beauty of that kind of collaboration too. But we do try to make sure that there's enough information, and if there's time, we'll also pull references a lot of the time for like, oh, this is, you know, this building or this style of dress or you know, this sort of location. I think it's really helpful too, because it's hard to sit down and have to like visualize everything. Shanae will have a very organized folder of like hairstyles or like, you know, location, buildings, time period. So
yeah. And with Ghost Roast, we traveled to New Orleans specifically. We took a research trip, so we went and visited, you know, old homes and cemeteries and just places throughout New Orleans. We took our camera and we were just snapping photos. This is something that we have been doing since the invention of E.J. Whitaker, when we went to Tuskegee and went to the forest and we're taking pictures and things. So we like love to provide our artists with images, especially of physical locations when we can, and that has been, I think that's been really helpful and helps to make Ghost Roast really feel like New Orleans, you know.
And even while we were there researching, we stayed just randomly in an Airbnb in Algiers and found out that it was like on the same block or a block away from where some members of our family lived like 50 years ago. So that was just like cool little facts that, you know, came to be while we were working on the project.
That's awesome. And somebody did ask, they said, did you choose your artist, or like, was this somebody you were just paired with?
No, we got to choose Emily. While we were when the editor reached out to us, we had previously worked with Emily on a cover for Fashion Forward. We're turning, you know, as we were turning them into issues. So we were converting them from web comics to issues. And this cover has not even been seen. It has not been seen by the public.
We've got to reveal the cover at some point. We got to have a cover reveal. This cover is so old at this point, but it's so beautiful. And Emily, Emily's artwork just, she was living in Los Angeles at the time.
Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah, and we were just like, she is so amazing. So when they asked if we had an artist in mind, we were like, oh yeah, we got an artist in mind for sure.
But the thing is, she hadn't even done sequential art prior to that. That's the thing. And so they were like, we want to do a test page to see if she can do this or whatever. And she blew everybody away.
That's great. And do you have any like favorite comics or graphic novels?
I think I read Ghost World in college, and to me that was just sort of like, oh my gosh, people are doing slice of life stories about teen girls. Like, it opened up my eyes to the possibilities of what could be done with graphic novels. And then I read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore. And the way he would make me turn, I would be like, I got something else going on, and like I got to go out and do whatever. But the way he would make me turn the page, like every time I would get to the bottom of the page, I would just be like, I can't stop reading this book. How is this man doing this? Is this magic? But and then I just got to shout out the Love Brothers, who are comics and animation pioneers. They were doing stuff back in the day. Jeremy and Robert Love. They did, I think it was Jeremy who did the Bayou book, but they really inspired us to see like a sibling team working together, and they were doing all sorts of things in indie comics and animation. So they inspired us. But Shawnelle, are there some? Yeah.
I'll just shout out quickly The Meek, which was a web comic. It may still be going, by Derching Hellman, who's out of the Bay Area. Just so incredible. Some of the most lush visuals that I've ever seen. And the story was so incredible. And it was, a big inspiration to us. And I still can never let it go. I hope that it becomes everything everywhere. And John Jennings is a big inspiration to us. And the Kindred graphic novel adaptation is something that's really powerful and a big inspiration as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's just so much out there. And if anybody's interested, there's so much that particularly artists like John Jennings does, as we talk about giving back and reaching out to create space and to highlight new artists. So Black Comics Returns and those sorts of anthologies are definitely worth checking out if you're interested in looking into finding new voices.
Thank you. And Emily, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to break into comics?
I would say just keep doing it. Consistency is key. Even when it seems like nobody is paying attention, or you don't feel like it, which happens. Just keep doing whatever the work it is that you do, whether it's comics or writing, because the more you do it, the better you get. And when those opportunities come, when somebody is looking for that writer, they're looking for that manuscript, you'll have things ready for when the opportunities arise. So that's been our journey, has just been continuing to work, even when we're working on other jobs, and having other full-time things. It's like, okay, we've always got something that gets us excited, gets us up in the morning, is just like keeps our gears turning. So I would say just stay consistent and just continue to do whatever that is that you love to do.
And yeah, store your ideas. Like that's how Ghost Roast came to be. We just kept tinkering with it, never let go of the idea. Have a place where even if you can't, because life will life. You can always, continue to tinker. My other thing is your community is really important, both your creative community and your personal community. Just make sure you're watering those relationships. And if you're looking to just get feedback, creating those we've had a lot of groups over the years that have read for us or gave us different feedbacks. It could be as small as you need it to be or as large. They will change over the years. Some people will come and go, but just having people to like sounding boards to just further develop your work is really important and helpful.
Yes, and I have got to shout out Danita, who was, when we were writing this manuscript, she was a member of a morning group. We just had a accountability group, just making sure that you're writing hey, are you writing? I'm writing, but she was really one of the main reasons why the Ghost Roast manuscript was able to be done on time. So I'm always celebrating Danita because those and Danielle. Yeah, Shawnelle, sorry.
Yeah, and Danielle Davis is we have another group that we're currently accountability group. I'm gonna NaNoWriMo. For people who know or don't know what NaNoWriMo is, we're NaNoWriMoing this November. That's the goal. So we'll probably try to do another project.
Yes,
coming in November.
So NaNoWriMo is the National Novel Writing Month, so that people who have an idea, like if you've always said, I want to write that novel, like November is the month where people prepare and they work on writing. I don't know how many, I think it's like
50K.
50K, yeah, to reach their goal. So if you're ready, come join us. If you got a novel.
Or if you're not ready, we had to get ready last year. I mean, we had to just get ready for this year.
That's awesome. And so before we end, where can people find you to follow you online?
Yes, find us. I am at Nail the Ale. I should be at Nail the Ale on Instagram and Twitter. And we have our website, GibbsSisters.com, if I'm saying that correctly, Shawnee.
Yes, and I'm Shawnee.Gibbs on Instagram and then Shawnee Gibbs on Twitter. And yep, you can find us at GibbsSisters.com.
And once again, Ghost Roast is coming out on January 2nd, 2024. It is available for pre-order on Bookshop, for indies, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and pretty much everywhere, which is very exciting.
Yes, I'll have it linked in the description box below. And I want to thank you for coming on here to talk with us. There were so many great gems throughout. And thank you to everybody who tuned in to watch and who'll be watching on the replay. And have a good night.
Thanks,
Thank
Nina.
you for having us. Bye, everybody.